What's going on, everybody? Here again to break down BFL number 3 for me, Lake Toho, and it went okay on tournament day. Let me tell you though about how good that practice was and what I figured out and why I think that the tournament did not go quite as well as the practice did. But yeah, breakdown on Lake Toho. Here we go. So Lake Toho in March in Florida, you know, you have a mixture of spawn, pre-spawn and post-spawn. We have a shad spawn starting in the morning. You have some bluegill spawn starting. Really, you've got everything going on. We're more towards the end of the spawn in this tournament. There's a lot more post-spawners than there is pre-spawners and spawners, but there is still plenty of fish up spawning. And that's what I found. I made a long run to one of the lakes in the chain down in Kissimmee, and yeah, it was probably the best practice I have ever had. Unfortunately, I didn't have a practice video, but it was something I just had dialed in and figured out where these fish were, and yeah, but tournament day was a little bit off. So let's get into what I found. So first spot that I found, my number one area where I planned on spending the whole day, was a long run down near Lake Kissimmee and fishing, spawning fish up shallow, spawning in Kissimmee grass and pencil reeds and lily pads. Locating these spawning fish, you're looking for hard bottom, sandy bottom, especially in Florida. A lot of this area had good sandy bottom or harder bottom all around, and pencil reeds are always a very good sign of that, and there's a lot of pencil reeds in the area. But the majority of the fish I found to be inside the Kissimmee grass. And what I was looking for in the Kissimmee grass were the holes. You'd see the whole field of Kissimmee grass and you see a hole in the middle of it. And that hole was a bed. And there'd be a male and a female in there, just a male. Sometimes you catch just a female. And it was, you know, there was a lot of them in this area. And I'd found that if I threw my bait in there, you know, let it sit for a little bit, worked it out slowly, flip in there 5, 6 times, 10 times if I had to. A lot of times I would get a bite, and if I caught the male, I might have to come back to get another bite, or if I caught the female right away, then caught the female, or there was no fish in there, you caught the male and there was no female. I couldn't see the beds, but I knew where they were, and that was the key, was discovering where these beds were located and then trying to present my bait to where I could get a bedding fish to bite. So in practice, what I had found was that stretch was just absolutely amazing. I mean, I was getting bites in most of the holes, most of the places that there was pencil grass present, just tons and tons of bites, and few fish I decided to set the hook on were big quality fish. And going into the tournament, I thought that I had one of the better spots I could find. Other than that, going into the tournament, I also had some backup spots out in Lake Toho, but I found plenty of fish out on offshore hydrilla. And these offshore hydrilla fish were pre-spawn, post-spawn. Some were left over from a shad spawn in the morning too. And I found a mixture of good and smaller fish. So I had a good backup plan along with that A spot of fishing for the spawning fish. Now, tournament day, it did not happen quite as I thought. Come to find out later after the tournament, there was another tournament held there on Friday, the day before our tournament, and first, second, and third place all came out of my stretch. They all fished right next to each other. Found that out a couple days after the tournament, just trying to figure out what the heck happened. And yeah, there's been a tournament there right before, and first, second, third in that tournament all came out of that stretch. A lot of my fish were caught. There's another boat that was in there in our tournament that was kind of questioning the same thing. You know, what happened to these fish, because I didn't see him during practice, but he ended up there tournament day as well. So to get into what I was doing and what baits I was using. So fishing up shallow. A lot of the fish that I caught came on either a Gambler Fat Ace or a Gambler Why Not. And to show you the setups I was using, start out with the setup I probably caught the majority of my fish on and caught the biggest fish on as well, was this right here. We have a Gambler Fat Ace in JB blue with a 1/4 ounce blue tungsten pin to it. Got it on a 6/0 EWG vector hook. The rod is a 7/4 heavy TFO Tactical Elite. Throwing that on 20-pound fluorocarbon. I'm a fan of fluorocarbon. I did throw some braid in there too. I was using Portland Silent Flip 50-pound braid for the really thick parts of the Kissimmee grass, but for the most part where it was less thick, I picked up the fluorocarbon setup and would flip that on in there. And this was one of the 2 baits that were really what I used the whole time. And yeah, this is just a staple for me. This JB blue that Gambler came out with has just been my new favorite color to throw in. Florida fish love a blue tip. They love that black blue tip. This is a little bit off, more of like a June bug with a blue tip with some blue flake in it. And yeah, I just love this bait. I've got it tied on probably every single day I go in the state of Florida. And I try to use it as much as I can. Throw it on Carolina rigs, weightless, you name it, I'll throw it on it. And it's been just a great bait for me. And on that bait, like I do with all my baits, adding some Liquid Mayhem. This is their Predator scent. It's more of a bluegill type scent, and I was adding that because bedfish typically are fighting off bluegills. That was my mindset, threw that on there, and I truly believe that helps you get bit in beds in every way possible. Yeah, a lot of times I'd throw this in there and I'd let it sit for a while and something would pick it up too before I'd even move it, and you can't tell me that had nothing to do with the scent. But yeah, setup number 1, Gambler Fat Ace. And the way I was working it again was I'd flip it in the holes, I'd flip it near the pencil reeds, and I'd let it sit for a little bit, and I'd slowly work it out. You know, I'd switch every once in a while, give it a big hop, especially if I got a nick or a bite that cast before. I'd flip it back in there and maybe give it a couple more aggressive hops, and that would trigger a bite. Or I'd add even more Liquid Mayhem to it. But yeah, you can never go wrong with the Gambler Fat Ace, especially in JB blue, especially in the state of Florida. Guys, it catches fish around here. So the next setup I was catching my fish on was right here. All right, Gambler, why not? And black blue tip, throwing that on a 4/0 vector flipping hook with a 5/16 ounce blue tungsten. Again, using it the same way I used the Fat Ace, flipping in the holes, working it back slowly. A lot of times in certain areas I'd flip this in there, or I'd flip the Fat Ace first, or one of the 2 first, and then I'd switch through the other and go back through the area. I have it right now tied on a 7'3" heavy TFO GTS, which is one of their older models. But during the tournament, I was throwing on that same 7'4" Tactical Elite. Just have that rod throwing something else today. Yeah, another great rod. You know, they make the same model, still the 7'3" heavy, now in their Tactical Bass and in their Tactical Elite Bass as well. But yeah, the Gambler Why Not and a black blue tip has been a key bait for me all spring, basically all year. I use this bait punching all the time. I use it flipping pads all the time. I use it doing a lot of things. It's a good finesse style creature bait, almost like a stick bait too, that I like to use, and especially pressured fish situations. But very, very good bait. Again, throwing it on 20-pound fluorocarbon with a 4/0 vector flipping hook and a 5/16 blue tungsten pin to it. And of course, adding the Liquid Mayhem to it. Always add Liquid Mayhem, using the same Predator scent with the Why Not. So then I had found fish offshore in the hydrilla, and also offshore hydrilla, I found that the fish were in those holes that you'd find in it, or the thicker clumps. It was kind of just any type of differential in the grass. That's where they'd seem to find some fish. And whenever I found a fish, I'd put my power poles down and sit there and fish it over a little bit, and usually I catch 2 or 3 off of one spot. The main bait I used out there was a jerk bait. You're throwing that on a 7-foot medium cranking Tactical Bass rod by TFO. This is their cranking 7-foot rod. I love this for throwing jerk baits too. Good soft tip. Throwing it on 12-pound fluorocarbon. This is like a 3 to 5 foot diving Strike King jerk bait. Now throw it on a quick reel. It was a little bit warmer, so that's when I start to pick up a quicker reel for my jerk baits. But yeah, this thing caught them, and again, adding Liquid Mayhem to it. You put it on your hard baits, put it on your soft plastics. What I do with the jerk bait too is I like to put it right on the belly. Right on the belly, just like that. I don't feel like it affects how a jerk bait runs at all, but it gets it done. You know, it catches fish, and I think it adds that scent, especially when you have your jerk bait sitting there suspending. You have scent now flowing in the water, which I think really triggers some fish to bite while it's sitting still. But yeah, guys, you can't go wrong with the jerk bait. To me, in Florida over hydrilla all year, really. It's a key bait for me. I always have it tied on, but it's something that, especially when everyone's throwing a chatterbait, everyone's throwing trap, jerk bait can be a good little tool to either go back through fish or really find a niche that the fish aren't used to seeing. So last but certainly not least, would it be a tournament day without catching a fish on a burner worm? I mean, guys, gambler burner worm straight up catches fish no matter what. I didn't have any of this on the tournament video, but offshore in that hydrilla, I also caught some on the burner worm. And during practice, I'd run the burner worm through the Kissimmee grass or on the outside of it as well, and I would get bit on it as well up shallow around the spawning fish. I'm sure I would have gotten bit if I would have flipped this more too. The burner worm catches fish. You know, it's just a straight up bait that catches it. Throwing it on June bug with a 4-aught Vector EWG, 3/16 ounce Wu tungsten, 16-pound fluorocarbon on a 7.3 medium heavy tactical elite. Again, like every bait, added some Liquid Mayhem, the shad scent on this as well. Offshore hydrilla, I got bit basically just straight reeling it through, throwing it out there and working it slow back. Basically anything I got bit on. It was a great bait to help find fish, especially during practice too. And it's something I really lean on for every tournament. When stuff gets tough, I pick up the burner worm and it catches some fish. But yeah, that was all my baits. And basically, as I mentioned, up shallow, looking for those holes, looking for those places the fish are going to be spawning, whether it's isolated pads, pencil reeds, or holes in the Kissimmee grass. Those are all signs where there could be beds. And I got bit off of all those in the lake. And you know, there was plenty of fish to be caught up there. Unfortunately, the tournament day got screwed up by a tournament happening the one day I wasn't there to practice, the day before the tournament, the one day I didn't practice in that area. You know, but I still pulled out some solid points and moved up from 11th place in the point standing to 10th. So top 10, 2 more tournaments left to go. You know, I learned that tournament. I had a great practice, so I'm not extremely thrilled with how the results went, considering how good the practice was, but I was happy how much I learned about what I was doing and how much confidence and how much I got dialed in during practice, to where, you know, without that tournament happening, I see a lot better tournament day. I don't know how much better, but I'll tell you it would be a lot better tournament day. But yeah, I mean, really finding the fish in the hydrilla, power pulling down was backup plan. You find the fish, you power pull down, you work them over, throwing a jerk bait and a burner worm. Up shallow again, bed fish. You know, there's always fish up shallow in Florida. Yes, you got the bluegill spawn that was going to start happening too. So you had fish probably feeding on bluegill spawn that was catching on the burner worm. But you know, the tournament didn't go as well as I wanted it to be, but it was still good. You know, I moved up in the points. You know, hoping to make it to that regional championship in October. You know, compete for that regional championship on the St. Johns River. Got 2 more tournaments left, Boca and Okeechobee, and we will see how it goes. But everyone, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it. If you like my channel or want to see more videos like this, more breakdowns, you know, subscribe to the channel. Comment down below any questions you have about what I did, or any of the techniques I used, or something else that you might think that you would have tried in that situation. But guys, again, thank you for watching, and we will see you later.